Hello and welcome to These Are the Voyages. This episode of These Are the Voyages is brought to you by old friends and brotherhood. Thank you. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of These Are the Voyages. I'm Captain Chase McKinney, and I am so excited about today's episode. I have a very old friend, a dear friend of mine. He's not that old. We're about the same age, but we've known each other for a minute, and he is part of the reason. I blame him. You can blame him for this, since he's the one that basically is responsible for getting me into Star Trek. Outright. So we're going to meet him in just a few minutes. Just a reminder that if you haven't connected with us on social media yet, on our Facebook page and group, make sure to do that. You can look us up. Just do a search in Facebook. We'll just make it really simple for These Are the Voyages. If you find the page, then you've also found the group. You just hit the button, and that's where the conversation can continue. We have some shenanigans going on in there. We have weird jokes. We have random polls of stuff going on, as well as just people hanging out, having a good time. So make sure you check us out there. Also, make sure you find us on social media as well. Instagram and Twitter, you can find us at TRTVPod. And then we'll talk about ways that you can get a hold of us towards the end of the show beyond social media. Now, like I was saying, this person, I've known him for a little while. We're going to get to know him for just a few minutes before we actually start talking Trek news and speculation and talking about whatever it is we want to talk about today. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce you to my dear friend, Eric Christofferson. What is going on, Eric? How's it going, dude?
Pretty good, Chase. I appreciate that. It's very nice that you're saying I got you into Star Trek. You kind of found it on your own, but I'll take it. I'll take it.
I just want to share the love. I mean, who else?
No, it's good. It's
Yeah, yeah, I might have found it and stuff, but you nurtured it, right? I mean, you're like, here's my bootleg stuff. Watch it.
I'll take it. I'll take it. I accept that.
Now, for those of you listening, Eric and I, we've known each other since high school. We didn't really meet until, I don't think we officially met until probably the end of our freshman year of high school, whenever I was getting into Order of the Arrow with the Boy Scouts.
Yeah, we had that class together in high school, but we didn't really talk to each other.
Yeah, it wasn't until then, it took us an entire year of our first year of high school and driving 150 to 200 miles north into the upper part of Michigan for us to actually meet and say, hey.
I think that's right. I think that's right.
So for anyone listening that might not be familiar with the Boy Scouts, at least with the Order of the Arrow, is, otherwise known as OA, is considered Scouting's National Honor Society. And it's a service society where you're chosen by non-members to join this brotherhood of cheerful campers and leaders and things like that. And there's a bunch of hoopla and traditions that go along with it, like any other organization. And Eric and I, that was a big part of our formative years, both doing Boy Scouts. We're both Eagle Scouts, and also being very active in the OA. So yeah, yay OA.
Yeah, that's how we got to know each other and became friends was through the
Yeah,
OA.
that's where it really took off. I mean, I think we were definitely part of, I don't know, maybe not definitely, but we had like different crowds that we ran with in high school for the most part during the week, but on the weekends it was totally different, like with camping and everything.
I don't think I had a crowd. Like I definitely don't think I had a crowd, but I understand what you're saying. I was on the football team
Yeah,
and some other sports teams. Yeah.
and I wasn't. I mean, I was. if I was doing any extracurricular stuff, it was like with drama, like with the like doing drama stuff, or it was with oh crap, what was that called? SAD, Students Against Destructive Decisions, or something like that, and that was like in newspaper. So those were my things in high school.
I wish I was like part of drama because I'm telling you, I love theater now. I'm actually trying to write uh, a play right now. Actually, I'm trying to adapt a musical, right, and make a play right now. So I wish I had gotten started that earlier.
Okay.
We could have been friends that way.
Hey, how about that? Okay, you brought it up. You didn't bring it up pre-show, so I got to know now. Tell me about this play, or is it like under wraps
No,
and you can't talk about it right
no,
now?
no, 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 no. So, uh, are you familiar with American Idiot, the Green Day
Yeah.
album? How it was made into like a
Mm-hmm.
Broadway show. There's like a story there in this rock opera. So I don't know. I I saw a version of it on YouTube. Like somebody had recorded the American Idiot play and they put it on YouTube, and I watched it, and it was kind of entertaining. And I was like, started thinking, what other albums could like have like a story that you could turn into like a play like that? And so the one that I found was Aqualung by Jethro Tull. It's not like as cohesive of a story
Sure.
that runs through there, but there's definitely like something you could do there, and like the play would work as a series of like little 5 minute
Okay.
vignettes. I don't know if that's how you pronounce that word,
Vignette.
vignettes. Yeah, and then you would have like the song that would like follow the vignette, and it would transition you into the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's something that I find interesting, right? And I'm trying to do it. It's not coming along that great, but
Okay.
I'm trying.
Hey, you know what? That's okay. If I tell folks, I encourage folks all the time. If something in you brings joy to your life, if it fills the tank up, doesn't matter how serious or silly it seems to other folks, get after it, man. So I think that's great that you're doing something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, it's fun,
Yeah.
something to challenge myself with.
Yeah. Well, you have to let me know whenever you actually finish it, and whenever it's at like the community theater or on Broadway or something. Okay.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's copyrighted piece of material, so like I don't even know if you could theoretically perform it without getting permission from who holds the copyright.
That's true. That's true.
You'd have to say free show, donations welcome.
Right. Well, I mean, there's always that minor snag that you got to deal with, but it's okay. Um, so okay, so we were doing that. So apart from high school and Boy Scouts, we also went to college together. Um, and we almost didn't go to college together. There at first. Well, I mean, we really didn't go to college at first together, honestly. I think right after we graduated high school, you went off to Embry Riddle. Is that right?
No, Embry Riddle was my second choice. I ended up going to Florida Tech
Okay.
instead,
Okay.
which was down in Melbourne, Florida.
That's right.
It's a long way from Michigan, right?
Just a little bit. A little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Um, oh, it was Bryce Harden. He went to Embry Riddle, I think.
Did
Yeah.
he? I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
he went. I'm pretty sure he went to Embry Riddle. Yeah.
Yeah, that Embry Riddle was my second choice, but I did not know that about
Yeah.
Bryce.
Um, I see pictures of him every once in a while, but I haven't kept up with him, and I definitely didn't go to our 10-year reunion.
Me neither. I didn't go to
Like
that.
the people that I want to be in touch with, for the most part, I can just send them a message or call them up and stuff if I really want to. Most of our class I thought were jerks and snobs, and I wanted nothing to do with them.
Oh, me too. Me too. I felt the same way.
Uh, but I mean, that's what you get for kind of living in, I guess, the town that we lived in at the time. It kind of had that, not completely, but it had that type of air about it to a certain extent.
If you say so, right? I tried not to pay
Yeah,
attention.
well, that's Grand Blanc for you. So, no offense to any of you Grand Blank people listening, if you are listening. Sorry. You know
Sorry.
it's true, though. Just a little bit. Oh, shoot. So, like we've talked about before with Star Trek, um, there's been a lot. There was a lot that was going on for me in terms of how I discovered it. But before we really get to that, um, you know, Star Trek went off the air in 2005 um, with like Rip.
Yep, that was our the final year of Enterprise was our senior year of high
Yes,
school.
yeah. So it went off the air in 2000, end of 2005, thereabouts, and um, we went really 4 years without it. Right, that's when the JJ Trek stuff came out or started coming out. It's May of 2009,
2009.
and then it wasn't. It was going to be like another 7.5, 8-ish years before Star Trek returned to television again. So we'll talk more about that. But what are your thoughts on some of that stuff? Like, did you enjoy like the JJ movies?
I didn't. I did not enjoy them. Maybe let me put it this way. I think they're fine science
Mm-hmm.
fiction, but I don't think they're good Star Trek.
Sure,
If that makes
sure.
sense. Because the J.J. Abrams movies, I feel, and the whole Kelvin timeline, because he didn't direct the third one. Those movies to me are more about action. Like they're much more action oriented
Mm-hmm.
movies, and they're trying to like have fights and shoot them up and blow them up. And to me, that's not what Star Trek is about. Right? Star Trek to me is about science, technology, exploration, diplomacy, and there's almost none of that in the Kelvin
Sure,
movies. So if you wanted to call those movies something else, I think they'd be fine, but they don't work for me as Star Trek.
sure. And
Especially the third one, the Star Trek Beyond.
okay,
That one to me, there's nothing Star Trek about that for me. But that's just my opinion, and if you like it, then that's fine.
yeah,
Like it's just not for me.
totally, totally. And I think I'm sure that there were folks that grew up in the or during the '60s run, the original run of Star Trek, and they get to the '80s and they're like, "Who's this bald dude? He's not. I mean, this isn't Star Trek." There were folks that probably felt the same way about Next Gen, and
And I'm sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to
you're fine.
interrupt you, but I'm sure there are people that felt the same way, especially about Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
It's Deep Space Nine, which is my favorite Star Trek, is so far removed from that pure idea of the original series that I'm sure that there are a lot of people that felt the same way about Deep Space
Yeah,
Nine that I'm saying right now about these Kelvin
sure,
movies.
sure, absolutely. Um, whoa, what's going on? Okay. Um, yeah, like you're right. There are folks that probably you know have these strong opinions. I mean, everyone's got seems to have a strong opinion these days about something. I mean, like someone could probably go bananas over peanut butter or something, and like the type of peanut butter it is. I'm being ridiculous right now, by the way, Eric. If you did,
I got
um, but that's just everywhere we turn nowadays. Everyone's triggered by something, and it's nonsensical at this point. It's
and sometimes I feel like people have the idea that if like I'm right and if you don't agree with me, you're just wrong and you're just terrible.
well, you are, by the way,
I
Eric.
really okay, yeah, I accept that. But I just really hate that attitude that people have. Like I like something you don't, you like something I
Mm-hmm.
don't. That's fine. We can still coexist. There's room for us in this
Whoa,
fandom.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hold on. Are you sure?
That's the way I feel.
Okay.
There's room for us. We don't all
You
have to
know,
be kumbaya. I know Star Trek was supposed to be a utopia, everyone gets along, kumbaya, but we don't live in the Federation.
all right, if you say so. I mean, that's your opinion. I don't know if I want to subscribe to that opinion. So, because your opinion's different than mine, I mean, you're wrong.
I accept that.
Do you? Can you?
I
Okay.
can.
All right. Well, we've had 2 seasons um, of Star Trek Discovery so far. We have a third season that's going to be popping up here. Uh, I have no idea when. They haven't even announced when season 3 is going to premiere. Only thing we
They've showed a trailer for it, though, haven't
Yes,
they?
yeah, they showed a trailer of it. If it wasn't at San Diego Comic Con, it was definitely at New York Comic Con. Which I got I got feelings. I got the feels on. I have feelings about that. Let me just say that. Can I process that with you real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm not gonna become an angry nerd troll or anything like that, but okay, SDCC took place I think like a week before, maybe 2 weeks before STLV, like the Star Trek convention. Why in the
Hmm.
world did they have to show the trailer at San Diego and not at STLV when they knew that their people were going to be there?
That's a good question. I wish I had an answer for you.
Eric, I ask you on here because you have the answers.
I, you know what? I don't have all the answers. Some people say that I act like I do, but I don't.
Well, um, that's fine, I guess. But seriously, like, you know, any Star Trek centric news, I think personally, I think it should come from the mecca of Star Trek conventions, which is going to be an STLV or maybe around this time of year, like later on in the fall, like a Destination Star Trek that happened just a few weeks ago, where we got an unveiling of Admiral Picard's uniform. Have you seen screenshots of that?
I, I have not.
It's
No.
pretty swanky, dude.
Is it?
Yeah, and it has like some major callbacks to like some season one, season two Admiral uniforms. So it's got like that whimsy about it that you would see from the Admirals.
Okay.
Um, and I think Patrick Stewart can pull it off. I really think
Yeah.
he can. Um, he One of his requests. I don't know if you've heard this make the rounds. Whenever he was talking about getting ready for Star Trek Picard, but he's like, I do not want to be in uniform this first season. I don't want to do it at all. And with him being part of the story writing process, he was like, you know, I think story wise, it makes sense for me to be in uniform for these parts. So there's going to be at least one episode where he's in uniform. Now we know they had to have made an admiral uniform for him to put on, but we don't know if he's going to be in also in like a next gen era uniform or a movie era uniform or what. But we do know about the admiral, so that'd be kind of cool. I mean, what's your opinion? Do you want to see him in one of the old uniforms or
Does the Admiral uniform that they're showing, does it follow the same like first contact era style where it's got
no?
the gray and just the undershirt that's
No,
colored? So what color is his Admiral's uniform? Is it red?
it's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be a red and red and some blacks and some stuff like that. Um, and if I can find it, I'll send it your way um, for you to look at real quick.
And so my other thought is if it makes sense for the story for him to be in uniform, then he should be in uniform. But the sense that I've gotten from all of the trailers is that the mission he's going on is not an official Star Trek mission.
That's correct.
So it would make sense for him to not be in
Mm-hmm.
uniform.
yeah, and
But
but he also
he's
left Starfleet too. So it wouldn't make sense for him to be in a uniform because he's technically not an active admiral. So it's got that weird balancing
but
act to it.
I could see there being maybe some small flashback scene, like when he shows up to Starfleet Command, and he's about to go on this mission, and he's asking one of the Admiralty, and there's like a flashback scene to what happened the last time he was there and when he left, so he could potentially be in uniform
Yeah.
then.
So sharing, while we're recording,
It is red. It is red. Yeah.
I'm sharing a little image with you, and I don't know. Um, I'll also
I kind of like it.
so that
It doesn't have the big Admiral belt buckle. You know,
yep.
the Admirals in the later Star Trek, later Deep Space Nine, later Voyager, they had that big fancy belt
Mm-hmm.
buckle. I kind of like that big fancy belt buckle.
Do you want a big fancy belt buckle, Eric?
I do. I do want a big fancy belt buckle.
Okay, so you're reminding me of something, and I don't even know if you'll remember this. Okay, so I think it was 2006 or seven was the first time that I went to go visit my mom out in Las Vegas. So my parents divorced and my mom remarried the fall of our senior year, and then she moved to Vegas like a month before we graduated from high school.
Okay.
So the first time I go out to Vegas, I know that Star Trek: The Experience is there, and I
Okay.
want to check it out. And you know that I'm going there, and I think I tell you that I'm going to go there. And do you remember what you asked me to try and find for you?
No, I have no
Okay,
idea.
yeah, it's been like a decade and a half, so I wouldn't blame you for not remembering.
Yeah.
You asked me to try and find some Chakotay's commander rank pip set.
Oh, the Maquis
Yeah,
rank thing?
yeah,
Those are kind of
yeah,
cool. I don't remember asking you that, but I did think it was kind of cool seeing those Maquis rank pips on their
yeah,
collars.
yeah. You were like,
I'm
hey,
probably the only person who likes those.
do what?
I'm probably the only person who likes those
I
things.
think they're cool too. I mean,
I think they're
I mean,
I mean, you couldn't really tell what rank somebody had because they were all the same, weren't they?
no, I mean they were very subtly different. It's just that they had like it was rectangular, and they still had like, uh,
Did they have marks for like two for
mhm,
lieutenant and three for commander? I guess I just never noticed that it was so
yeah,
small.
yeah. I mean they have like the same pip system, but instead of it
Okay.
being like actual circles, like circle magnetic pins, like we've seen, it was just like colored slashes, like gold and black slashes in this rectangular thingy that you wear.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah,
I guess I just it was so small. It's just hard to tell. I guess.
I got you something. I don't remember what I got you. I think it might have been like probably a DS9 Voyager era communicator pin or something. I don't remember, but it's
I do like that style communicator pin more than the next generation style communicator pin.
so I have this.
That is the future
Yes.
one. Whenever they did like a flash forward to the
Yep.
future, and you could tell what rank they were by how many bars were behind it.
Yes. Yep. Ding ding ding. That's the
Ding
one.
ding.
So anyway, we were talking about Picard and this uniform that he's going to be wearing in at least one episode. Have you seen any of the trailers, like the two or three trailers that have released for Star Trek Picard?
I have, yes.
What are your thoughts on those?
It looks pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. I am really excited to see what is gonna happen here because I know that Patrick Stewart wouldn't have come back unless he felt like the writing was up to snuff.
And I really hope that's true.
Right? I just feel like he's at a point in his life where he doesn't need this, and he wouldn't come back unless he felt it was up to quality.
Right. And
And I'm really digging the feel of these trailers. I really am. I'm really looking forward to it.
You know, it. I'm I'm uh I'm cautiously optimistic about this show.
Okay.
And the only reason I'm more optimistic is because of Patrick Stewart, Sir Patrick Stewart being in it, and just how connected I guess he is to the project in terms of being in the writer's room, being a producer with it, and them listening to him in terms of story beats that they're going to take with whatever direction they decide to go, right?
Yeah. And I would imagine that like he has a feel for this character, and if they were writing something that he didn't feel was appropriate or fit, he would speak up and they would listen to him because of his presence.
I would sure hope so.
I would hope that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, yeah. I think it'll be cool.
Do we know how many episodes it's going to be? Is
10
it going to be like it's going to be 10? So like Discovery is in the like the 15
ish.
range.
Yeah, it's right. It's going to average about 15 per season.
So I didn't know if Picard was going to be shorter than that. In which case, the shorter the season, typically the easier it is to keep the quality up the entire time.
And I think Patrick Stewart at one point said in some interview somewhere, this is basically a 10-hour movie. So even if you wanted to binge the thing, you could. But what's your take on it in terms of weekly releases versus binge? Do you have a preference these days for shows like that?
I have been binge watching television shows since 2004.
Okay.
Like before Netflix really was Netflix existed back
Mm-hmm.
then, but it wasn't really a streaming service. You ordered DVDs in the mail.
Yes.
But I've been binge watching shows since 2004. I'm downloading bootleg copies. That's how I watch Star Trek. This was not like a cool thing. It's like binging is like a cool thing to do now, but it really wasn't back when I started
Mm-hmm.
it. And so I like binging shows. Like I waited to watch Discovery, both season 1 and season 2 until the whole season ended
Okay.
so I could watch it in one sitting. And that's how I watched Star Trek, right? Aside from Star Trek Voyager, I watched all of Star Trek in the binge format, where I just would watch 4 or 5 episodes a day, like that.
Okay. Okay. So with Picard, do you see yourself maybe doing the same thing of, I don't know, waiting for the full 10 episodes to drop? If they are going to do it like a week to week like they have been with Discovery, do you see yourself waiting 10 weeks before you watch it?
Well, that also depends because like Discovery, both of its seasons have been broken up into two pieces, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
been like half of the season they took like a month or two break, and then the next half. I know they did that for season 1. I don't know if they did that for season 2 for Discovery.
I think they did.
I think they did too. And it's behind this paywall on CBS All Access. But it was really the one thing that you can do is you can sign up for CBS All Access and you can get a 1 week free trial. And it's only 15 episodes and you can watch that in less than a week. And you can get around that paywall. I shouldn't be saying this. CBS All Access, don't come after me. But I think like I think I'm definitely going to watch Picard on a week to week
Okay.
basis. I'm not going to wait because I'm excited for this one. I'm a lot more excited for this than I was for Discovery. And I want to watch this one. I really do.
Sure. So we were talking briefly pre-show when we were just hanging out about some of the things that are kind of making the rounds in terms of like news and speculation relating to Star Trek Picard. Certainly, we know by now that Jonathan Frakes, Marina Sirtis, Jerry Ryan from both Next Gen and from Voyager, and Jonathan Delarco from Iborg, reprising his role as Hugh. They're all coming back. in their respective roles, of course. Um, but the thing that you and I were talking about is the fact that we look at 80s and 90s Star Trek, right, and how the Romulans look, and we also certainly look at how they looked in Star Trek, just 1960s regular old William Shatner Star Trek, and how human they looked, and then we get to 80s and 90s, and they're a lot more green. They've got like more forehead like humps or
Protrusions, something.
something.
Not quite cranial ridges, but like protrusions.
Yeah, it's just like this V thing, right? And they're more green. And you know, we see them and how they're portrayed for, gosh, what, 15 years at least, uh,
Yeah.
whenever they're making appearances. And then we
Huh?
look at the 2009, um, Star Trek movie with Nero and how he looks totally different
But totally different, but still recognizable as a Romulan. I think as soon as you see him, you're like, that guy's a Romulan.
for the most part. Yeah. Eh,
I felt that way.
the the thing that some people are kind of joking around about on like places like YouTube and Twitter and other outlets that you like just kind of keep your ear to the ground with this kind of stuff is the fact that the Legolas character, so like the ninja looking Romulan that you see in the trailers, right?
Legolas looking.
We got Legolas in Star Trek. It's not Orlando Bloom though, y'all. Uh,
No, I know you just had the guy on the Middle Earth guy on. You should have asked him about the Legolas character.
that's true. I should have. Well, Phil will be coming back to record his episode here in the near future. So I'll ask him. Why not? Hey, what do you think about Legolas in space? Shout out to you, Phil. Hope you're doing well, man. Um, anyway, so now I know you guys can't see me motioning this, but Eric can as we're chit chatting. He's got like this like V thing, like going like even more intense than Spock and other Vulcans. It's just like these really pointed
Pointy eyebrows.
eyebrows, man. Like, and I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Like with what they're doing with Romulans now?
Listen, if you go all the way back to the original Star Trek and then you track it forward through all incarnations, the only species that looks exactly the same from when they started to where they are now are the humans.
Mm-hmm.
Every species that we've encountered looks different now than what it did back then. And that's to be expected. I mean, advances in makeup and technology are going to change the look of these species. It's just going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have perfect continuity. And Star Trek is littered with continuity errors. I know there are going to be people out there that like they feel like it's their job to go through and pick out the continuity errors everywhere, but it's going to happen.
Okay, so you're inviting this on yourself, my man. You ready for this?
I'll bring it.
Okay, Michael Dorn as Worf.
Okay.
Okay, Discovery Klingons. They're not Klingons. They're Klingorks.
Okay.
So what do they do with Star Trek Picard if Worf comes back? Do they go with the 80s 90s version that he's known for, or do they do a Klingork style makeup on him?
Worf is Worf. Like, you have to look at that guy and know that's Worf. Worf is Worf. He has his look. He cannot look like anything else. Cannot.
Okay, but
But Worf's cranial ridges changed from season one and then every incarnation afterwards because they lost the
I was
mold
about to ask if you knew that story. Yeah.
seasons one and two. I did. So his cranial ridges look different in season one than they do in everything he's been in after that.
I think I read somewhere that the season one uh, cranial ridge that he was using, not only was it stolen, but I think it was also ran over.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's what I think happened to the first one. So that's why when you get to season two, it's totally different. And
Yeah.
for any of you that are brand new to Star Trek, especially as we do this like kind of baptism into Star Trek that Phil's going to be doing with us, just pay attention to that. Like, take notes or just check it out, especially as we get towards the end of season one and moving into season two. Just you will see how much of a difference it actually is.
Yeah, it's different. It's definitely
Yeah.
different. I mean, you do have to pay attention to it. It is something that's easy to overlook because it's just like that's Worf, and he's got cranial ridges,
Mm-hmm.
and you can. The idea of Star Trek is you can gloss over stuff like that because we're accepting of other cultures and other species.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
But going back to this, you brought up the Kling orcs, and you brought up what Nero looks like in Star Trek J. James
Yep.
2009. When I saw the Nero character in the first trailer, I said that guy's a Romulan. So to me, he was instantly recognizable that way. But when I saw the first trailer for Discovery, and I saw this alien species that are the Klingons in this, I looked at them and I said, "Ooh, interesting, new alien species." And then immediately it cut to Michelle Yeoh as Philippa Georgiou saying, "Inform Starfleet we've encountered the Klingons." And I was like, "Klingons? Those aren't Klingons."
Those are the California raisins, y'all.
It's like I was literally excited because new alien
Mm-hmm.
species because they looked so different. They weren't even recognizable that that was what they were trying to do.
Yeah. I don't have um I really don't have too much of an issue with advances in how they do it, but I want to be careful how I say this. I think there needs to be a certain reasonable amount of fan service that's given, to where you're respecting the fans, but you're also wanting to do your own thing. And I don't know if that was like a good balance with what they were doing with the Klingons in Star Trek Discovery, right? I mean, I know I joke and I say the Klingorks. A lot of people call them Klingorks too, but it was
I've never heard that.
it's too much of a deviation from what we've grown accustomed to since really Search for Spock. No, 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 Wrath of Khan.
Well, the first time we ever saw cranial ridges was in the motion picture, wasn't it? Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
I thought it was Wrath of Khan for some reason.
I think doesn't V'ger first encounter a Klingon ship before it enters
Oh yeah, I
space?
barely remember that. You're right.
All of the Klingons have the exact same cranial
Yes.
ridges, and then later on they start different Klingons to start to develop their own unique
Mm-hmm.
ones. But I'm pretty sure the first time we see it is in the motion picture, which would have been 1979. So we have this what
40 years.
40 years almost, right? Of this is what we're expecting Klingons to look like.
Yeah.
And I do think it was a very drastic change.
Right. Yeah, because we go from them just looking like guys with a tan to, you know, more of like the looking like they're from the band Kiss, with the platform boots and the big hair and all that stuff. And then of course the cranial ridges that are becoming more differentiated from, house to house and, Klingon type to type, so on and so forth. So yeah.
But like also if you look at Discovery, like if you look at the Andorians and the Tellarites that show up there, they look slightly different than we saw Andorians in Enterprise and Tellarites in Enterprise. But it's small changes,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like the Tellarites have tusks now, and they never had tusks before.
Mm-hmm.
And the Andorians look slightly
Mm-hmm.
different. But it's just small changes. And I think that's fine because you're trying to create your own thing.
Sure. Sure. Now, speaking of Andorians and Tellarites, we know that they are part of the original squad of like founding planets. and whatnot for the UFP, United Federation of Planets. When there was a what was it the most recent trailer that dropped for season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, there's a reveal of this flag, what we are assuming to be the United Federation of Planets flag that's on display in this random office. But instead of it being littered with stars of member planets, there's like what 6 stars, and like most of the founding, like some of the founding planets, bigger stars are gone. So any thoughts, any speculation about what that might be? I mean, apart from like folks left. I mean, that's kind of obvious.
I have not noticed this. I haven't. I didn't look close enough to see this flag. I've never seen it. But Star Trek Discovery season 3 is going to jump forward into the future.
About 900 years, yeah.
Yeah, significantly into the future. So you would expect there to be some changes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a mention in Star Trek Insurrection, the movie, where the main bad guy in that says the Federation is old. The Federation is not going to last much longer.
Ruafo, I think, says that.
Yeah, yeah. Ruafu says that. He's like, the Federation is old. The Federation is weak. They're not going to last much longer. So it's tough for any political entity to last 1,000 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, you go 900 years into the future, who never know what's going to happen.
I think when we think of the shows and just like what we've kind of experienced, and I might have some gaps just trying to recall this. I think it was, Star Trek Enterprise. We talk about the temporal Cold War. You have Agent Daniels, who's I think from the 32nd century. No, he's pretty like 20, 30 something.
Pretty far into the future. I can't remember, but yeah, pretty far into the future.
So we have him. We go to we look at Star Trek Voyager, and we are going to do an episode specifically on like basics of Star Trek Voyager here in the near future for those listening. But there's like an episode or two with Captain. Oh gosh, Jen, don't hate me. God Almighty. Anyways, he wears a different uniform, but he's still Starfleet. I think he's in the 25th, no, 29th century.
Are you talking about Captain Braxton?
Yes.
In all the Voyager time travel episodes?
Yes.
Captain Braxton.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Eric.
Time ship relativity.
There you go. Yeah. Well done. You just need to come back and just co-host this thing with me so that I'm not sounding like a friggin' idiot. How about that?
Hey, if that's something you want to do, I'd be interested.
Okay. It doesn't pay much. I mean, by not paying much, I mean zero.
Well, money's not everything. The Federation doesn't have money.
Except when it does.
Except when it does, when it makes sense for the plot.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that realized that. Oh, Lord have mercy. But yeah, so we see like these different iterations, maybe not iterations, but these different evolutions of Starfleet, and I'm assuming the UFP as well, where they've gone more from the traditional boldly going where no man has gone before to maybe boldly going back to where someone has gone before, with all these temporal missions that seem to be like an integral part of the story, or the advancement of the fleet, basically.
But I don't think Daniels was a part of that temporal Cold War from Enterprise. He wasn't a part of the Federation, was he?
I thought he was. Maybe he's just a temporal agent, but I don't.
I thought he was just from one faction, but I didn't think he was actually a part of the Federation.
Maybe he wasn't. I just know that we see the Enterprise J way on down the road.
You see the Enterprise J way on, yeah.
But that's about it. But
I think he's just trying to preserve the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And the timeline is the Federation exists.
Right. somewhere down the road, and it's been a long road, getting from there to here.
Been a long time.
Yeah, it has. Um, wow, that was great. Loved it.
I don't know. The first time when that popped on, when I watched the pilot episode of Enterprise, I was like, "Yeah, this is cool."
Yeah.
And then then it kind of lost its novelty.
I liked it since we're going to go down that rabbit trail for a second. I really, if I need to be inspired and just be in a good mood, I put that on. I put the Enterprise season 1 and 2 theme song on.
Definitely listen to the full song version.
Mm-hmm.
I've had that on a CD that I burned.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was talking about burning CDs.
For you youngsters out there, do you know what burning CDs is? um, where the heck was I going with that? I don't even know.
I don't know.
We were talking about the theme song. Well, the theme song. Like I like the season 1 and 2, season 3 and 4. No, thank you. I don't like the
change it up and make it more up tempo.
It was a country bumpkin nonsense thing, and I like country music, and I'm like, what is this? For any of you that end up watching Enterprise and you like season 3 and 4, that's cool. Not my bag.
We're just talking about the theme song.
I'm just
right?
talking about the theme song. Yeah. Anyway, but we're going to be jumping 900 years into the future, and I don't know what it's going to end up being. The thing that does give me hope for what they're going to do is hearing from Jonathan Frakes, who we know played William Riker in Next Gen and all the Next Gen movies. He's directed a lot of Star Trek episodes himself, including a couple from season 1 and 2 of Star Trek Discovery. He has said that season 3 is going to be taking on a more traditional Star Trek, optimistic, hopeful, utopian, whatever, this season. So I'm hoping that that Alex Kurtzman and the folks there have kind of taken into account the fans' voice. I know there's a lot of angry people out there.
Well, I think that you think there's a lot of angry people because they tend to be more vocal.
Yes. And I think I've said this before on the show, but Discovery's not my favorite Star Trek.
It's not my favorite either.
It's Star Trek. I like it. I don't hate it like other people do. Do I have issues with it? Of course I do. But it's not something that I'm going to say, don't ever watch that Star Trek. That's garbage. I'm not going to do that.
I'm not going to do that either. It's not my favorite, and I definitely got some issues with it. But if you enjoy it, then that's okay. Right? And the people out there that are so vitriolic about it,
Ooh, fun word.
There's no place for that, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And yeah. So, in fact, I think it was, I was talking with the last person that was on the show about this, that we all have different entry points into it. And as I talk about this, I want to kind of segue into that here shortly, Eric, kind of hear about your entry point and how you came to, get into Trek and what kept you there and stuff like that. But we got to remember that it doesn't matter if it's Star Trek, the animated series, if it's JJ Trek, Discovery, if it's this show, it's going to be different for everyone. And that's totally fine. So for you all listening, you've heard me say this probably every episode, and I'm kind of sorry, I think, at this point. Maybe I'm not, since I keep saying it. But at the beginning of this show, I blamed you for Star Trek. So for at least nurturing it to a certain extent, even though I might have stumbled in it myself. But you, when I say you nurtured it, you were there to kind of answer a lot of questions for me, to just go back and forth and dialogue about stuff. I mean, we were dialoguing about stuff like even before then. Like with you and
We
I.
used to talk about 24. We'd
Yes.
watch the episode, then we'd get on AIM right after the episodes,
Okay,
and we
we got.
talk about 24, all our theories and what we thought was going to happen,
Yep.
and everything like that.
And for those of you that are listening that don't know, AIM, it doesn't exist anymore. It's way before Facebook Messenger, man. AOL Instant Messenger is where it was at. But yeah, it 24 was originally on Tuesdays when it first aired, and then it switched to Mondays.
23.
And
Season 4, it moved to Monday.
the only way I remember that, and this is going to sound so stupid, Eric, but when I was in Troop 106, we met on Tuesday nights, and I think it was after I got my Eagle, and I joined you guys, or I was doing like varsity whatever with you guys, and I became a 215 member in earnest. I started going. It was Monday nights for 215,
Yeah.
and that's about the same time that 24 switched to Monday nights.
Yeah, and 24 was on at 9.
Yes.
And our troop meetings got over at 8:30.
Yes.
So you had to all right, I gotta leave.
Bye.
Gotta go. Gotta make it home.
Because we weren't rich. We didn't have TiVo or anything like that. There were no DVRs then.
But back then, DVR wasn't really a big. It existed, but it wasn't prevalent like it is now. And streaming video service wasn't prevalent like it is now. So you had to watch it, or else you were gonna miss out because 24 you needed to see every episode.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that was us in our high school and college days, just going back and forth almost even before blogging was kind of a thing and speculation was truly what it is now. That's what we did, talking about President Palmer and what he was going to do with Jack Bauer and vice versa, and how they were going to save the day. And
how much we hated Charles Logan.
oh my gosh, yes, freaking Richard Nixon of 24. Anyway, so that's what really started our talks of TV shows back then. And I remember having a lot of questions whenever I started watching it, for the most part. And you're like, hey, you might not say it this way, but hey, there's more. Why don't you, I have some stuff that you can watch. And that's, I think you hooked me up with Voyager first.
That sounds right.
And I watched Voyager, and I remember not being interested in Deep Space Nine because I'd see it on TV, and I'm like, oh, at the time. And then you gave me Enterprise, I'm pretty sure, and I loved Enterprise. I really enjoyed Enterprise, but I'm rambling. I got to stop that. Why don't you just go ahead and take the time and just talk through how you came into Star Trek and what that was like, who introduced you, just however you want to go about it, just have at it.
All right. So hopefully I don't ramble here because I have that tendency too. But I'm almost 100% positive that the very first episode of Star Trek I ever saw was Arena, which is an original series episode where Kirk fights the Gorn on that desert planet. I don't know what the contrived situation was but somehow Kirk has to fight a Gorn on this planet. That's what some alien race makes them do.
Okay.
And I got to believe that I was 5 or 6 when I saw this. And I assume it was just my dad. I know it wasn't my mom who turned it on. So I assume it was my dad who had turned it on, probably late night reruns. And I saw this episode that I was just sitting there watching. I was like, this guy's fighting a dinosaur in the desert. How cool is this? Imagine a 5-year-old kid, you're seeing a guy fight someone in a rubber, lizard suit. You're going to think it's a dinosaur. And I just remember thinking, how cool is this? And my dad was like, that's not a dinosaur, that's an alien. An alien? What is this? And so I'm sure that my dad had told me, oh, this is the show Star Trek. It was on when I was a kid, because my dad would have been a teenager right when Star Trek started. So I'm sure he watched it back then.
Okay.
Right? I wish I could ask, but, can't. Um, and so I know I'm almost 100% positive the first episode I saw was Arena. And then I know that on those late night reruns, I know I saw Trouble with Tribbles, right? Because I remember thinking those cute, fuzzy little things. And I know I saw a piece of the action, right? Because the Fizbin, right? That Fizbin scene is like blazed into my mind because I just remember laughing very hard at it still to this day. Fizbin. And so I know I probably watched some more episodes as probably my dad had turned on late night reruns. And I'm certain that I saw maybe an episode or two of the Next Generation on reruns. If I didn't see an episode, I saw that at least that clip of Locutus of Borg and then Riker saying fire. If I didn't see that whole episode, I know I saw that scene multiple times. Probably the most iconic Star Trek scene ever. But I would say my true entry point into Star Trek, besides from watching a few of those episodes, was Star Trek Voyager. So Voyager premiered in January of 1995. So I would have turned 8 years old just after that. Okay? And Star Trek Voyager is the first television show, not first Star Trek show, not first science fiction, but the first television show, period, where I watched every episode as it premiered for its entire run.
Really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
So every every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock on UPN from 1995 till 2001, I was there watching Voyager when it premiered. Because if you missed it, you couldn't you had to hope for a summer rerun or something. Because there was really no way to, or you had to hope someone you knew you recorded it on VCR, or you knew someone who recorded it on VCR. Because we didn't have streaming video service or DVRs back then.
Sure.
But I just remember watching Star Trek Voyager and being like, every Wednesday night at 8 p.m., I had to be there to watch it. And all 170 some odd episodes I watched right there. And I distinctly remember this, an episode from season 4 called The Killing Game, which was an episode where the Hirogen took over Voyager and they forced the crew into the holodeck to play their games. And that was a 2-part episode that premiered both parts on my birthday. And I remember my family coming over and be like, we should go out and celebrate for your birthday. And I was like, no, I'm watching Voyager tonight. I distinctly remember that was on my birthday. And that would have been in season 4. That probably would have been, what, 2000?
Okay.
No, it wouldn't have been 2000. It would have had been 97, 98. Okay? So Voyager was what really got me into Star Trek. And I'll always have a special place for Voyager because that was what really started me. But the other thing that really got me into Star Trek is the movie Star Trek Generations.
Okay.
So Star Trek Generations is really the finale of The Next Generation. Right? All Good Things is a fantastic episode. I love that episode, All Good Things. It's probably one of my 10 favorite episodes of Star Trek. But it's not really an ending to The Next Generation. Do you think it is?
All Good Things. I mean, in a way, but not really.
I mean, if you look at Deep Space Nine, it has an ending. It's wrapped up.
Definitely. 100%.
Voyager has an ending. It's wrapped up.
Yes.
But The Next Generation doesn't have an ending.
Yeah,
to the show proper.
You could just as easily argue for like a season 8, the way that it goes.
Yeah. Okay. So Star Trek Generations, the movie, which Star Trek: The Next Generation ended in May of 1994.
Yes.
And Generations came out in November of 1994. Okay, so it came out before Voyager premiered, because Voyager premiered in January of 95.
Which, by the way, I will argue that that Generations is a Christmas movie by virtue of there being a Christmas tree in it.
But I remember what we did as a family. Like, my grandparents lived about 2.5 hours north of where we were. And as a family, we would also go on camping trips up north, right? And if you're from Michigan, up north is where you go camping.
Yes.
Where are you going? Up north. And it could be anywhere from 50 miles to 5 hours.
You know, I consider up north anywhere north of West Branch. That's just it for me.
Yeah, that's right. That sounds right. Yeah. But anyway, my grandparents lived about 2.5 hours away. And back then, we had bought, my parents had bought this small little TV. It was probably 10 inches and it had a built in VCR. And you could plug it into the cigarette lighter in your car.
Mm-hmm.
And so my brother and I would sit in the back seat of the van that we had, and we would stick this TV, shove it in between the armrests, and we would watch movies on these trips, 2.5 hour trips up to my grandparents' house. And that's how our parents kept us calm for the trip. And we must have watched Star Trek Generations 100 times. I'm not even exaggerating. There's nothing Star Trek that I have seen more than Generations, the movie.
And see, I was talking to Lisa, who was the guest I had on just before you, and she has her own podcast called I Love That Movie. And whenever I was on her show talking about my favorite movie, it was Star Trek First Contact, which I have quite literally seen over 200 times without exaggerating.
How is that possible?
First Contact?
Yeah, how's that 200 times to see anything?
I love it, man. Like, I remember the first week that I got it on VHS, like, I watched it like 3 times in a day, and I probably did that like 5 or 6 times, like 5 or 6 days the same way.
Wow. But like I'm saying, how could you watch that 200 times when I'm saying I've seen Generations 100 times?
I mean, it's probably been like it's somewhere between 100 and 200 times that I've seen it without exaggeration. I'll just put it that way.
But the thing is, Generations, while, it came out in 94, so we would have had it on VHS in 95. Like I said, I would have been 8 years old. I certainly enjoyed it, and I still enjoy it to this day. But in order to truly understand that movie, you have to have watched The Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many things in it that are like important little callbacks. Like, who is Guinan? Right? Who are Lursa and B'Etor?
Right.
Who is, like, Rene, Picard's brother, and his nephew? Right? Who are these people?
Who is Lore that they got the data, the emotion chip from?
The emotion chip. There's so many things in that movie that are little callbacks to the series that, unless you've seen it, you're not going to pick up on all of them, and you're not going to understand fully that movie. So while I watched that 100 times and I really enjoy it, and that helped me really like Star Trek, I would not recommend watching that movie until after you've seen The Next Generation. Definitely not.
Okay. That's fair.
Okay? Yeah. So, I saw that movie Generations a bunch. I was watching Voyager every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. on UPN. And then I remember going to the theater. My parents wouldn't let me go to the theater to see First Contact because I was too young. I would have been 9 years old, and it was a PG-13 movie, and it looked violent, and they wouldn't let me go to the theater. They let my brother go, but not me.
Jerks.
Still a little upset about that. Yeah. Like, well, why can't I just go with him? They wouldn't let me. But we bought that on VHS, and I watched it a bunch. And I remember going to the theater to see both Insurrection and Nemesis. But then Voyager ended in 2001, and immediately that fall, Enterprise started.
Yeah.
Like, there was no break, just the summer, and then Enterprise started. And I watched season 1 of Enterprise, and I liked it. And I watched season 2 of Enterprise, and I remember liking it. But then I think they changed what day it was on. Like I don't remember what day it was on. I remember Voyager was on Wednesdays distinctly, but I don't remember what day Enterprise was on. But I think between seasons 2 and 3, they changed what night it was on.
They changed it to the. So obviously, I didn't write it. I didn't view it when it was actually on the air. But I remember reading that they had changed it to the Friday night death slot.
Okay, and that's probably what it was because I was on the football team,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't think I could watch it.
Yeah, the entire time we
And
were in high school, you were on the football team, weren't you?
yeah, and then so Friday nights would have been our game. So seasons 3 and 4 would have been junior and senior years of high school.
Yeah,
So I don't think I would have been able to watch it. And season 3, is one big story,
yeah, basically, yeah,
right? And so like you kind of have to watch the whole thing. And so I feel like I saw a couple episodes here and there. Maybe I caught one on reruns, but I didn't watch season 3 as it was on because life.
yeah. It tends to happen.
And then the same thing happened with season 4 of Enterprise, right? I didn't get to watch it. I maybe saw an episode here or there, but I didn't get to watch it because life. And I'm pretty sure you're right. Now that you said that, it was on the Friday night time slot. I'm pretty sure that's right. Now that you said
Yeah,
that, I think that makes sense.
yeah. So Voyager was a really big part of your life in terms of your Star Trek life because I mean you watched it faithfully for its entire run, and um, so that ended. You said May of 2001, and that so gosh that would have been just a few months before 24 would have aired because 24 was originally supposed to air a couple weeks before 9/11, but they pushed
Yeah,
it back because of all the terrorist stuff that was in the movie
the
or in the
well,
show.
the pilot episode of 24 ends with the airplane blowing up,
Yeah.
which is now, if you watch now, that's not in there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But when it aired, I remember watching 24, and when we first saw it, the plane definitely blows up. You definitely see it.
Well, well, well.
Well, yeah. But yeah, so Voyager ended then, and it was a big part. And I remember just every week, I have to be there, I have to watch it. And I really enjoyed it, and it was really important to me. And that's like how Star Trek started for me. And then, like I said, I saw some Enterprise. I watched the first 2 seasons, but I missed it. And then I went to college, my first year of college, and I don't really talk about this a lot, but that was a very difficult time for me. Like I was going through a lot, like emotionally and mentally, and like I know a lot of people come out of high school and it's like they feel great. And it's like one of the best. They have this high, but for me, it really wasn't like a great moment in my life. And I went down to college at Florida in Florida, and I had a really I really struggled. It wasn't a great time for me, and I'll just leave it at that. Um, and so I remember like I had just started binge watching television shows like my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
I binge watched Stargate, all of Stargate through senior year of high school, and a few other things. And so I remember just being like really, really not wanting to interact with people at that moment in my life. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna watch Star Trek Enterprise because I missed the past 2 seasons of it.
Yeah.
So I went and downloaded seasons 3 and 4 of Star Trek Enterprise to watch, and I was like, oh, well, this 2 seasons, it's like 50 some episodes. This will take me, a couple of months. Took me like 3 weeks. I was like, oh, okay, well, I'm done with that. And then I was like, well, you know what? So that was seasons 3 and 4. So then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go watch seasons 1 and 2. So I watched Enterprise season 3, 4, and then seasons 1 and then
You
2.
did shotgun style, huh?
Like it totally like back ass word for ass word. Like and like I said, that took me probably 5 weeks to watch those 4 seasons. right? If
Yeah.
that. And so I was like, well, I really thought that was going to take longer. And I really enjoyed watching it then. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go rewatch Voyager. And this is when I went and downloaded Voyager
Okay.
and bootlegged it onto my computer. And I watched Voyager. And all 7 seasons of Voyager took me like 6 weeks to watch.
Dang, dude.
Right? I know, and like I was going to class too in college,
Were you?
right? And yeah, and I was doing homework, kind of. And then I would just like all the free time I had, I was just sitting at my desk watching Star Trek.
Okay.
And uh and then after I got done with Voyager, and it was really nice to have Voyager there because like I said, this was like not a great time for me in my life, like so mentally and emotionally. And Voyager just had like a special place for me because it was like the first thing that I ever watched, and it was comforting going back to watch it.
Yeah.
And then when I got done with Voyager, I was like, you know what? Why don't we keep this going? So I downloaded The Next Generation, and I was watching that. And I think I was probably halfway through The Next Generation, and that's when I found out that you were watching Star Trek as well.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was at that moment when I was in my first watch of The Next Generation that I found out you were watching it as well, right? Because we were talking then,
Yeah.
and so I watched The Next Generation all the way through,
Yep.
and then I finished that, and I was like, well, let's keep it going. So I said, okay, DS9 is next, and so I was watching Deep Space Nine, and I remember that summer, 2006, there was NOAC at Michigan State.
Yeah.
And I was there, and you were there.
Mm-hmm.
Were you working at that one, or were you just at that
I
one?
was just at.
You,
I was at NOAC. Yeah, that was the. So Sunshine was lodge chief. I was vice chief for NOAC,
yeah.
and
So you're,
I was about to become lodge chief that fall.
okay. So I remember going to NOAC at Michigan State, and right, I was still a youth because we were 19 at that point.
Yeah.
So still an OA youth. But I remember because like I had been the lodge chief and I had no more real responsibilities that I didn't really want to like go out to all the training seminars anymore. And so like I went out to some of like the extra stuff like the ceremonies, competitions and whatnot, but I really didn't partake in a lot of the NOAC stuff. So that week when we were at NOAC, I was watching season 7 of Deep Space Nine. And Steve Cowan was my roommate, and he was right there watching it with me. Season 7 of Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And I finished Deep Space Nine the final night of NOAC before we left the next morning.
Holy cow.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, I got one more thing to go, don't I? Got the original series. And so I remember watching the original series like over the rest of the summer. And the original series took me a lot longer to get through than all of the others
Mm-hmm.
because it seemed dated to me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It just wasn't like the same as all the others when I just come through watching this Next Generation era.
For sure.
But that's my introduction to Star Trek. It probably took me, like I say, from January to like through July. So it took me 7 months to watch it all.
Okay.
And I've gone back throughout the years, and I've done a complete rewatch, like in a air date rewatch, where like the original series, then the Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Enterprise. Watched it in that order. But I've also done the chronological rewatch, where you do Enterprise first, the original series, the animated series. I've only seen the animated series once.
Yeah.
And then, the Next Gen, Deep Space Nine. But I did it where you switch off, like, the Next Gen and Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm.
I went online to find the star dates from the episodes.
Yeah.
And so there's people who put them in chronological order based on the star dates.
Oh, Lord. That's intense.
Because, well, there's some moments in, like, season 7 where the shows are working with each other,
That's right.
especially toward the very end when they introduced the Maquis,
That's right.
right toward the very end of season 7 of the Next Gen, which would be season 2 of Deep Space Nine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, you know, once the Next Gen ends, Voyager starts immediately.
Yeah.
Right? The Next Generation ended in May of 2000, 1999, 1994, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
May of 94. And Voyager started in January of 95, so it was literally right away.
Right. And Deep Space Nine kind of gets this like redheaded stepchild treatment to a certain extent because it was like, well, Next Gen's on the air, right? And Deep Space Nine comes around. I think it was like season 6
Season 6.
of Next Gen.
Chain of Command in the middle of season 6 is the last episode of the Next Gen to air before Deep Space Nine starts.
And then, of course, Next Gen goes off the air, and then they're already starting production on Voyager. So Voyager's now overlapping with Deep Space Nine. So Deep Space Nine didn't really get to have its own thing by itself.
It was on the air for like half of a season, maybe like 10 episodes by itself.
Yeah.
That's it. And then Voyager immediately started. But like the pilot episode of Voyager, they leave from Deep Space Nine.
Yes.
And like the two series, there is some little moments where they talk about it. Like obviously the Maquis plays a big role in Voyager.
Yes. Well, definitely I mean, throughout the whole thing, but certainly at the very beginning.
At the very beginning, yeah.
So, well, that's cool. Yeah. I love the detail of what you're saying about like your entry point and like what kind of kept you, how it kept you, type of thing. By the way, I don't know if this is still the case, but if anyone wants to show Eric some love, you can send him a number 10 can of chocolate pudding. So I remember your term had ended because you were lodge chief. I think our senior year of high school, weren't you?
Yeah, senior year of high school. Yep.
So right after we graduated high school, shortly thereafter you go off to Florida to do your thing. I can still remember being at a lodge executive board where we were talking about how to collect big old cans of chocolate pudding to create a care package for you.
Somebody did. I'm pretty sure Bev sent me one.
Yeah. So, and without sounding too sappy, I just want to just be real with you, dude. Like some of my favorite memories of that time was being able to talk to you on Instant Messenger about just random stuff. I felt like I was able to really connect with you over 24 and Star Trek, and it just, looking back on it, it just meant the world to me that we could do that then.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice to have someone to talk to about Star Trek because, like, I didn't know anybody who liked Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
No one would admit to liking Star Trek. Like, you could like Star Wars, that was cool. But if you like Star Trek, oh, that was totally wrong, and you were just a complete nerd. And, like, I am a big nerd, but, like, back then, I didn't embrace it like I do now.
Sure. We're in our 30s, who cares, right?
It was nice to have somebody to talk to about Star Trek, somebody that also watched it, because I literally knew no one that watched it, or no one that would admit to it.
Yeah. It was just really cool. Like, I mean, yeah, it looked like the Hilton's in space and stuff, but I mean, Next Gen, of course, but like, it was really cool. And, you know, I remember Spike TV was, at least maybe at the beginning, it was advertised as like this man's network. So like, I felt like part of, in a way, the network made Star Trek out to be a little bit cooler just by how they were marketing themselves as a network that I was showing it on.
When Spike TV started, they were like, America's only network for men.
Yes.
I distinctly remember that ad campaign.
Yeah.
For Spike TV when it was starting.
Yep. And that's really all I watched on Spike TV was Star Trek. Like any kind of Star Trek that I could stand to watch, I watched it on Spike TV. And at that, like I was saying earlier, and even on the pre-show, that they would do it like 2 or 3 hour blocks of next gen. So that's how I got through it. Was doing that. So
That takes some time. I mean, if you let's say you're just Monday through Friday for 2 or 3 episodes, right?
hmm
It's gonna take a long time to get through 170 some episodes.
but you think about it though. I mean, if you're really faithful to watching 2 or 3 episodes a day, 5 days a week, that's 15 episodes. That means you're basically going through a season in like
In
a week and a
week and
half
a half, yeah, almost because they're 26 episodes.
ish, depending on the season. Yeah, you're looking at an average of 24 to 26 episodes.
I think the only one that's not like for the next generation, I think it's only season two that's not 26 episodes.
Probably.
But for Deep Space Nine and Voyager, the first season is shorter for both of them,
hmm
and then they're 26 episodes after that.
Yeah.
If you don't count double episodes as one episode,
Yeah.
if you count them as two, which I do, count them as two.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now, apart from what I'm doing with Phil that we talked about fairly recently with what he's going to be doing with, starting with next gen. Not only am I doing that, but I'm watching on my own next gen over again, in preparation for Star Trek Picard.
Okay, sounds like something I need to do too.
So right now I'm on season 3, somewhere in season 3 right now.
It's getting good then. It's getting good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Let me ask you if you would agree with this. And this is painting with broad strokes. Okay, would you agree that generally speaking, when it comes to Star Trek television, that the shows typically are pretty rough until you get to like season 3 or middle of season 3?
On principle, yes, but I would also say that I think the first season of the original series is the best season,
Okay.
and it gets progressively. I don't. It gets less good as it goes along. Right. So for the original series, like the first season is its strongest season. The third season is its weakest season because the budget was like slashed almost to nothing for its final season.
Okay.
But if you go to like your modern era, your phase 3 or whatever, not if you think of like the movies as phase 2, um, I would agree with that because if you look at the beginning of the Next Generation, the first season,
hmm
there's some really bad
Code of
episodes.
Honor.
Code of Honor, When the Bow Breaks. Uh, is it called Angel One? That episode where there's like that planet run by the women.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bad episode. Not because it's run by women. That's not what I'm saying.
Be careful.
But just that episode is just bad. The Naked Now is a blatant remake of an actually really good original series episode.
Yes. And we're going to be talking about that. I think the episode that we're going to do with Phil, we're going to go through the first 3 or 4 episodes. So, I mean, Encounter at Farpoint, that's a 2-part, which I'm going to count as just a 1 episode for the sake of the show that we're going to do. And I think we're going to end up doing, I think Code of Honor will probably be part of that first set that we do, maybe. So we're going to go through like the first 4 or 5 episodes when we do that first review.
That's a bad
You
episode of
know,
Code of Honor.
let's just hang out with Code of Honor for just a second. And I don't want to completely spoil it, but I think the story idea is good. I think the casting is what made it really problematic.
Though with
Yes.
the racial, I think that's a fair assessment.
I think had they not made that particular decision, that the episode I think would have played a lot better than it did.
I think that's fair. And I think you can say that a lot throughout Star Trek that there's some racial issues that it has.
Up the Long Ladder, the Irish one.
Oh, uh, Journey's End in season 7 with the Indians.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of things that you can say about that throughout the entire history of Star Trek.
Oh, Star Trek, how we love thee.
But if I get back to the question about does Star Trek not get good until season three, I would say you're probably right. Season one of the Next Gen has some bad episodes. Um, Season one of Deep Space Nine. Now, Deep Space Nine is my favorite Star Trek,
Okay.
but season one is almost unwatchable. Almost unwatchable.
Yeah, the one where they're playing hopscotch in some random like gambling
Yeah,
game, like that was just
move
painful.
along. It's called Move Along Home.
Yeah.
But like season one, like its pilot episode is good. Its second and third episode are decent, and then everything in between is terrible until you get to like the last two episodes, which are fantastic. Like the episode Duet, and then the episode In the Hands of the Prophets, which is where we first meet Kai Wynn. So like
Yes.
you can watch Deep Space Nine, the first two episodes of that season, and the last two, and literally everything else in between is unwatchable. But I would say then though that Voyager actually has a really strong first season.
I would agree with that 100%.
I think Voyager, outside of the original series, Voyager has the best first season. Because I think Voyager knew what it was from the very beginning. Like, the next generation, I think, was trying to find its way and say, are we just going to try and remake the original series stories 100 years later? Or are we going to do something different? And then Deep Space Nine was like, we're on a space station, we're not on a ship, so we're not boldly going where no one has gone before, where people are coming to us. So it had to really figure out what it was.
And I was just watching uh, What We Left Behind, it's the Deep Space Nine documentary. Have you seen that?
Okay, I have not.
Okay, so I
I,
would
I, I need to.
highly recommend it. It's probably about $20 on Amazon. Comes in Blu-ray. I don't think there's a digital copy. I'm sure you can find one if you need to. Um, but they, where was I, Eric? What was I gonna?
We were talking about, Deep Space Nine didn't know what it was, the Next Gen didn't
Oh,
know what it was.
yeah. So they were Ira Stephen Bear, one of the showrunners on Deep Space Nine.
The showrunner.
Yeah, well, he was okay, yes, he was the showrunner. There were Michael Piller was in there too, Rick Berman, mainly Ira Stephen Bear and Michael Piller were the brains behind that show for the most part. They were talking about like how with that show that you had Next Gen, you had Voyager, where they're boldly going where no man's gone before. Like, just like the mission that we hear at the beginning of like most of those opening monologues. The boldly going where no one's gone before was the outward. And this show's take on it was on the inward with the character journey that everyone was experiencing, like with this science versus faith kind of thing that was going on. Like, how do we get along with people that differ from us?
And Deep Space Nine is my favorite because it is more about inward and it's about people and it's not as event driven.
Mm-hmm.
Although it becomes very big event driven at the end. But even then, when it becomes event driven, the finale is still about Cisco and not about the Dominion. So I like Deep Space Nine because it does look inward and is more about character.
I I like I like it and I don't like it when it comes to the finale of Deep Space Nine.
The finale of Deep Space Nine is my all-time favorite Star Trek episode.
Okay.
It's number one favorite Star Trek episode
Okay.
of all 700 or so.
Okay. I love it. I love it.
It's almost perfect. The only thing that's not perfect about it is Vic Fontaine. God, I hate Vic Fontaine.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, I hate Vic Fontaine.
Okay.
Like, there's one good thing about Vic Fontaine, and it's that episode where Nog retreats into the holodeck in season 7 after his war injury.
It's only a paper moon. Love that. Love that episode.
That's a fantastic episode, and that's the only good thing with Vic Fontaine. Everything else, terrible.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. Again, that's your opinion.
That's my opinion, right? If you like Vic Fontaine, then more power to you.
I got a tattoo of him on my lower back.
Oh, okay. Stepped into that one.
Oh man. No, I like the fact that there's something in Star Trek for everyone, regardless of where you are in your life. There's something encouraging about what they offer and what's just in it in general. So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, there's a lot there, and I feel like you can find something to enjoy.
for sure.
Right? Like, I enjoy the character, the diplomacy, the science, the exploration. But if you enjoy more action, that's definitely there.
Yeah, you're not going to get that until probably season 5-ish.
Well, in any show, right? There's definitely action pieces that you can find.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I guess I was just speaking specifically about Deep Space Nine, but yes. Yeah, any show you can get that.
Yeah. And, there's lots of different things that you can find there.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, if you're listening to us at this point right now, about however long we've been talking and rambling on here, you found something that you can enjoy in Star Trek, and that's why you're here listening to us.
Yes, yes. And if you've been someone that's been around since the original series when it was just called Star Trek, or, you're giving it a shot now, hopefully even just listening to our ramblings, there's been some kind of curiosity that's been piqued, or maybe some kind of inspiration to give one of these shows a chance. We don't really care. I mean, Eric, we don't really care where you start. We just want you to start somewhere and give it a shot.
Start. Give it a shot. That's all I can say. Is you never know what you might find and what you might like.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So we have been rambling for a while, and I love the fact that we've been rambling for a while talking Trek. This is just great.
This is fun. I'm having a lot of fun.
Good. Good. We might actually have to have you come back and do this more often then.
Hey, if somebody enjoyed this and you want to have me back, I'm all for it.
We might have to start a poll on in the group on if they want Eric back. If Eric, if you come back and you're doing this week after week with me, we might have to promote you to like commander or major or colonel. It depends on if you want a Starfleet rank or if you want a Bajoran rank. I mean, it's up to you, man.
Janeway never had a commander as her first officer. Her original first officer was a lieutenant commander.
He done died.
And Chakotay was also just a lieutenant commander.
Yeah.
That's the rank she gave him. So, maybe I gotta stick at lieutenant commander.
Okay. Oh, again, we can do that for you. I mean, I know how to make stuff happen. It's pretty simple. It's like, here you go. Here's your rank. Congratulations.
Here's my rank.
Let's just have some fun with that for a second. If you did, would you rather be first officer of the in-show space station or of the ship, the USS Vigilant?
I like that name, the Vigilant.
You like that?
Who came up with that?
Yours.
That's nice.
Yours truly.
Nice. I like that because it's like vigilant. I like that. That's cool.
And
what's the name of our station?
Lone Star Station.
Lone Star Station.
So it's a play on Texas, but it's also a play on us being alone
in space.
In space.
Okay.
You picking up what I'm laying down?
So are we is like Lone Star Station like a backwater station? Because Deep Space Nine was not like an important place when it started. It was just some backwater planet. That's why they only sent a commander there. A damaged commander who was about to resign from Starfleet.
And then Picard, of all people, had to give him a pep talk. It was the last person he wanted to hear from.
Really a very good pep talk.
Get your crap together or you're fired.
Well, I've been thinking about quitting anyway.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
No, I haven't really thought about that. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it depends because like some of these star bases are really big. Like the traditional like mushroom looking star base
Yep.
that Star Trek has.
Yep.
Like what I'm talking about? Those things are huge. If you think about it,
Mm-hmm.
'cause I remember that episode very early on in the Next Generation where they're going in for like repairs or something, and it opens up and there's this like huge room and they can fit the Enterprise D, which is enormous,
Yes.
inside of this space station with like, and they could fit like five of them in there.
It
Those like those mushroom shaped stations. I don't know what else to describe them.
wasn't that the didn't they just do like a screen grab of it wasn't Regula 1, it was Starbase. Oh, Lord have mercy. It was in Search for Spock, I think.
I don't know.
Okay, well, good talk.
Good talk.
It might have been like Starbase like 87 or something like that.
Yeah, they numbered them.
Yeah.
They just had numbers. They didn't have names. Isn't Starbase 87 the Trouble with Tribbles?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of Starbase 1. Hold on.
I'm pretty Starbase 87. I feel like that sounds like the Trouble with Tribbles one.
It might have been. They just have like they just use like random numbers and that's okay, right?
Well, I mean, yeah. Like, where does 1701 come from?
I don't know. I was going to say it's someone's birthday, but no one was born January 7th, 2001 when that came out.
And, like, what's Voyager's registry number? Do you know that?
74652?
I thought it was 74656.
That might be it. But anyways, here
Like random.
so this is like what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, the mushroom.
This mushroom thing. Yeah, Starbase 1 is what we're talking about. So if anyone that wants to look that up, just look up Starbase 1.
So what was it? You said 87, right? No, the Starbase in the Trouble with Tribbles is K7.
Okay, there you go.
I got the 7 right.
You're halfway there. Just like Bon Jovi sings about. Anyway, so yeah, we have a station that you guys can all you listening can just hang out at and stuff. And if we ever need to go on like some kind of long range mission, whatever a long range mission looks like for a podcast, that's what we have the USS Vigilant NCC 8717 for.
Is the USS Vigilant like a runabout, or is it like a bigger ship?
So I haven't decided that. I'm leaving that up to the listeners to kind of decide on what that is. You know, whether it's a Sovereign class, Galaxy class, Constitution, Constellation. You know, doesn't matter to me. Personally, I'm partial to like Sovereign class and stuff. I just think they look nice. Same thing with the Galaxy class. I think they both look nice. But I mean, you can make something up for all I care.
Galaxy class, I don't know. To me, it feels like it doesn't seem practical to me because it's like so big and top heavy, and it's like not maneuverable.
Mm. But it was Starfleet's finest at the time.
It was Starfleet's finest, and I even feel like there's an episode where Worf says something like the Enterprise is not like a great ship in battle, but once it sheds its bulk and just goes to like the battle part, then
Yeah.
it's formidable.
That's one thing that we'll have to talk about later on in an episode. But I just thought it was just so awkward. Like I was like, whenever I'd watch like those early season episodes where they'd have like the separation, and I'm like,
Yeah, and they'd have like the big sequence where they were just like it took forever for them to like
Mhm.
rejoin.
Yeah, and I'm like, it looks like a freaking horseshoe that's shooting laser beams and stuff. Like it's a laser. I mean, it's a horseshoe shooting laser beams. I mean, who's going to be scared of that? Like the Klingons, Romulans, really going to be afraid of a horseshoe coming at them? Hold on, wait.
Well, I mean, the original Constitution class looks like its nacelles are like toothpicks, like stuck into the back of it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think I don't know, and like well, we can. You know what? We're gonna have to talk about starship design in a future episode.
All
We're just
right,
gonna have to do that, okay? Because
we're
like,
gonna have to do that.
there's some ugly freaking ships out there that I'm like, what were you thinking?
Like the medical ships that just are like the little like round ball at the front.
Yeah. Now,
Ugly.
for any of you that are triggered right now, it's okay. It's okay. We don't really hate them. They're just not our favorites. That's just our opinion. Okay, I know I'm being like really persnickety about this right now. I'm sorry to all the listeners out there.
That's a big word.
Persnickety? I
Persnickety.
like using it anytime I can. Same with asinine.
It's a good word.
That,
Good word.
I'm a big fan. Or torpid. That's a fun word too.
I'm not even sure I know what torpid means.
So it's a GRE word.
Okay.
So the only way, and we're really going off the rails right now. So this is what happens when we don't talk for 10 years, basically.
Yeah. Basically, yeah.
So for any of you guys listening, this is almost verging on as in lane right now, probably from Uptalk and Tolkien. So yeah, that I'll tell you about that later, Eric. Don't worry about
Okay.
it.
All right.
But torpid, okay. So this is how I remembered what torpid is. A torpedo goes fast. Okay.
Okay.
Torpid is the opposite of a torpedo. It's like a nicer way of another word that we've probably used ignorantly, which also means to hinder or to slow down.
Okay.
So
All
to
right.
retard. That's it's
I got it.
yeah.
I got
For
it.
anyone else, yeah. Anyway, so now that we've talked GRE words, here we are. So we've talked a lot of Trek. We've talked about. I mean, we've caught up, obviously, or started to catch up. I'm sure we have a lot more catching up to do since it's been 10 years, and a lot's happened. I mean, I've gotten married. I have a kid now, and you're big time professor. So look at you.
Small time professor.
Yeah, well, whatever. You're big time to me, Eric. You're big time to me.
Oh, that feels nice.
As we kind of wrap up today, do you have any I don't know, any closing thoughts, comments, just about Star Trek in general, and just about anything that we've really talked about? I mean, it doesn't really matter, just anything.
I would just say that science fiction has always been about, telling stories about our society that maybe you can't tell in another way, right? You can create this contrived situation that can allow you to have some insight into society. And I feel like Star Trek does that very well. And that's what's kept me coming back to it. And I hope that you can find something that you enjoy in Star Trek. Right? And maybe not everyone likes the same thing you like, but that's okay.
Sure, sure thing. Well, Eric, again, thank you for being my victim
Thank
today.
you for having me. This was a lot of fun. And I hope that we haven't run off all the people. That there's somebody still listening this deep into this thing.
I'm sure there is. I mean, there are some listeners on this that listen to other podcasts that I listen to also that are a lot longer than this. There's a podcast that I listen to regularly, which is about 3 hours in length usually.
The only podcast I typically listen to is Rob has a podcast,
Okay.
the Survivor podcast,
Okay.
and he'll he'll go on for 3 hours sometime with his guest,
Okay.
right? And so you get pretty deep into it.
Okay. All right. Now, if anyone wants to try and connect with you or say hey or anything, any ways that they can do that, either with social media or otherwise?
Um, you've got your Facebook page that or your Facebook group that I'm a member of. You can probably find me through there, Eric Christofferson. But I'm not really a big social media guy.
Okay.
Like, I don't post on it. I don't have a Twitter or anything like that. I'm not the Twitterer. And but yeah, if you feel like you want to message me and you're listening to this podcast and you're part of that Facebook group, you can find me there and you can probably send me something through there.
Cool. Okay. All right, Eric. Well, again, thank you very much. And I guess we'll see if we bring you back as a regular co host, or just as a regular guest or something. So, again, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you,
Yep.
Chase.
As we wrap up, I can't tell you how just how much fun it was to have my buddy Eric on this. So again, Eric, thank you so much for being willing to reconnect and just have some fun talking Trek, and just catching up on old times. Now, there's been a lot of news that's been kind of popping up a lot more lately, in the world of Star Trek. A lot of it hadn't come up yet, but what I'm probably going to start doing, to try and keep up with all the Trek news that's kind of popping up, so that it's not too old in terms of like the release schedule. So release schedule wise, I think a couple of y'all, some of y'all have been asking like when, are you like on a certain schedule, or when do you plan on releasing these episodes and things of that nature? The answer is yes. I do have a release schedule that I'm currently using, the sevens. So I'm releasing on the sevens. So if you just look at the 7th, 17th, and 27th of the month, that's what I'm looking at in terms of when I release to you guys. So you should be able to plan that out, so that you know when to expect it. And if you decide to put this particular podcast in a certain like rotation schedule, like you might have with other podcasts, that's fine. But I just want to put that out there. So with that being said, what I'm going to aim to do, starting very soon, is it'll still be released through, however you listen to it, whether it's on Spotify, or iTunes or whatever. Apart from this main show, like These Are the Voyages, there will be like shorter shows. Right now I'm looking at maybe once a week. It could potentially be twice a week, just depending on how much news or how many developments might be taking place, that I'm going to be speaking about. So what'll happen is it'll just be like, a Voyages news or Trek news, that you'll see kind of pop up in your podcast feed, where we'll just talk. I'll just talk about any developments that are taking place. So without going in too much detail with that right now, some news that has been dropping and developing lately is related to JJ Trek. And when I say JJ Trek, that is in relation to the 2009 movies that J.J. Abrams launched, with just Star Trek, followed by Into Darkness and Beyond in 2000, I believe that was 13 and 16 respectively. So talk about it more later in this future news segment, but just to kind of whet your appetite, there's been recent news that Chris Pine and just the studios in general are planning on coming back for another Star Trek Kelvin timeline, we believe, set of movies. So that's pretty exciting for those of us in Star Trek, especially those of you that had your first exposure to Star Trek from the Kelvin timeline movies. So how about that, huh? So just there's a lot more to that, and there's been a lot more that's kind of been developing in relation to that. So I'll expand on that more, like I said, in the very near future with these like Trek news segments or special shows. Now, patrons will get early access to that a couple days ahead of time compared to just the regular feed. So if you want to get it early, head over to patreon.com/these are the voyages, and you can sign up as a cadet, which is the lowest tier, or whatever tier you'd like to receive a variety of different benefits that come in at each tier. Now, one thing that's been kind of cool that happened again days after Eric and I got to connect and just chat it up is I was in contact with actually let me back up one of the actors from Star Trek Voyager towards the back half. He started following These Are the Voyages on Twitter, and I was freaking the heck out because it's Echeb. So you'll find out about Echeb in the back half of Star Trek Voyager if you ever watch it, which I highly encourage you to do after this wonderful, lovely conversation with Eric on this episode. So, anyways, I asked him like, "Hey, would you ever be interested in coming on the podcast and just having a conversation, talking Trek?" And he direct messaged me at 1 a.m. and he said, "Yes, absolutely. Get some more followers on your Twitter and I'll be happy to come on board." So this is my challenge to you as listeners and for the people that you know. If you would like to have Echeb, the character Echeb, and the actor that plays him, to come on to this podcast, what I'd like to do is challenge you guys, encourage you guys to like our social media stuffs. Okay, so head on over to Twitter, our Instagram, and Facebook pages, and give them all likes, thumbs up, stuff like that, and also get your friends to do that. Also, I'd love to be able to get several hundred followers before we approach him and get him to seriously consider coming on to the show. That would be fantastic, and I want to do that for you guys, but I need help. So if you can really help me out with this, so that we can not only just connect with more people, but so that we can do something really cool like this and talk to an actor that was actually on a Star Trek show. This would be fan-freaking-tastic to learn some like more insider behind the scenes type of stuff, get his perspective on stuff that was going on in Star Trek Voyager. I mean, that would just be so stinking cool, and I want to do it for you, but I need your help. So what do you say? Can you help a guy out? Don't make me beg. I mean, I feel like I am right now, but seriously, if you guys would help me out with that, especially like with our Twitter and our Instagram, go ahead and give it a like. In fact, also send in your Trek stories, okay, so that we can feature them in an upcoming episode of These Are the Voyages. Now, I know I had mentioned it at the beginning of the episode, but I want to remind you again that there are ways in which that you can contact us and interact with us. Okay, so if you want to get a hold of us and contact us and let us know what's going on in your world, just share reactions, share how Star Trek has impacted your life, and things like that. Just open hailing frequencies. You can send us a note by typing in coordinates trtvpod@gmail.com. You can also send us a voice-only transmission by entering in 817-752-4757. That's 817-752-4757. Just remember that there's a 3-minute limit, and your comments may be used on a future episode of These Are the Voyages. Now, if you'd also like to send in a long-range communication, such as a package or a letter, you can do that by by entering in coordinates P.O. Box 2455, Azle, Texas. That's AZLE 76098. Bajorans, Trill, Andorians, Vulcans, whatever you are, thank you so much for being with us today and listening to this episode. As always, I pray that you will always boldly go and make it so.